We're only 3 weeks out from the NBA draft, and Summer League is following that. But college football also rapidly approaching as guys are starting to gear up for summer, and we're getting a lot of the predictive metrics and analytics that are starting to pop out, including the 2024 FPI National Championship odds according to ESPN
These are
Analytics.
so wild.
There are some things here. I was surprised, to say the least. Number one is the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, well, first, FPI is not a predictive model that we should take very seriously, okay? What it is, FPI is the Football Power Index. You see it for the NFL. In college, the formula is a little bit different, but it takes into account your returning production, your whether or not your coach left, and your returning production on offense, your returning production defense, and special teams. Then it takes into account your opponent's win record historically and weighted more towards last year, and whether you are playing a home game or a road game, your distance traveled, all that kind of stuff is taken into account. And so they ran the simulation. ESPN did the schedule 20,000 times to get this FPI model that they're pumping out now. And yes, Georgia is number one, kind of far and away the best team in the country. When you kind of look at it, it's staggering how good they think Georgia is going to be.
It's actually really interesting because if you take a look at the teams here at the top, none of them are returning their quarterbacks.
Well, Georgia is.
Well,
yeah,
Georgia is the one. Everybody else is they're slotting in new guys.
Yeah,
that's what kind of threw me off here was wait, what? As you look at how this is lining up, because you have railed over and over and over against the greatness that is the Ohio State University coming into this year.
They are going to be really damn
They
good.
are fourth on this list behind Oregon at number 2 and Texas at number 3.
Yes. What they're looking at is in the FPI too, again, where your games are played weighs heavily, right? So where does Ohio State have to go? They have to come all the way to Eugene, right? Week 7, they play at Oregon, and that is one of those toss-up games. They're projecting, Oregon to have the most wins in college football this year at 10.8 of these national title contenders, right? Not taking into consideration kind of the group of 5 schools and all that. But your top 4, as you said, Georgia, Oregon, Texas, then Ohio State at number 4. Look, I watched Ohio State's spring game. Their transfer portal acquisitions have been out of this world. I mean, they have a 1-2 punch in the backfield that is going to be as good as anything that we've seen in college football in quite some time. I mean, Judkins, the Ole Miss transfer, in the backfield with Travion Henderson, who has had his injuries, his workload has gone down. They have got a solid 1-2 punch in the backfield. They bolstered their secondary. They got Knowles back in as their defensive coordinator, which is going to be, their defense looks revamped and really stinking good. Like Ohio State looks, their wide receivers, they're 1 through 4. Again, Marvin Harrison Jr. out.
Egbuka's back for what appears to be the 5th year.
They are so stinking good, except for I do have questions about, how their offensive line molds and gels. Going to be a big question because obviously that is your most important position group outside of quarterback on the football field is your offensive line. But they are good up front as well. I find it really interesting, though, because of the transfer portal acquisitions that Oregon did have, that Oregon has jumped up so high on this list. Now, I say take the FPI with a grain of salt because it's a predictive model that has not
done well being predictive.
It has been far from perfect. Far from perfect. But what it looks at, and this is where you can kind of sit there and say, all right, let's narrow the scope down. It's off on like who the best teams are in college football, but it paints a pretty damn good picture of who they think the top 12 teams are going to be in college football this year, which is the biggest change that we've seen is that we now have a 12-team college football playoff. And the fact that they are so high on the SEC and the Big Ten this year, surprise, surprise, but Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, then Penn State. The top 6 are from 2 conferences.
Mhm.
2 conferences, the top 6 teams in college football.
And if you take a look at how this is framing up on the betting side of things, Brett McMurphy of Action Network, odds to win the CFB playoff: Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Oregon 4, Bama 5. And then you've got after that, the single teams are Ole Miss and LSU. Then it starts going groups: Florida State, Notre Dame, Penn State, Clemson, Miami, Michigan, A&M, Tennessee, and then rounding out USC, Utah. And the interesting thing about this for me is taking a look at those groups. Again, who's the outlier here? SEC, Big Ten, SEC, Big Ten, SEC, SEC. Oh, there you go, Florida State. Florida State, Notre Dame, who are both trying to move in some facet or another, and then Penn State. You have to get to Florida State, Clemson, Miami, that group of ACC teams, before you get out of SEC Big Ten country in the betting odds.
Look, when it comes to the playoff and this predictive model of the top 15 teams in college football, 11 of them are from either the Big Ten or the SEC. 11 of the top 15.
I mean, it's nuts. So what do we have? The first Big 12 team is Utah with 60-1, then Mizzou, Kansas State.
Oh, you're talking of the Brett McMurphy?
Yes,
there?
yeah,
Brett McMurphy?
on the gambling side of things. But it's still the same thing. Like, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams before you get to a non-SEC Big Ten team in Florida State, Notre Dame, in odds, and Penn State's on the same line. So 8 of the first 10 and 11 of the first 14 or SEC Big Ten.
And that's the world of college football that we're going to have to get used to looking at.
And every team in here is from the ACC. That's not SEC Big Ten.
It's crazy.
Which is why those teams are trying to leave the ACC.
And try to get into
the SEC or Big Ten.
It's going to be a gauntlet. The ESPN FPI, going back to that, the expectations for Oregon should be very high this year. Dan Lanning has built off of Mario Cristobal in stacking recruiting classes. What they've been able to do in the transfer portal has been incredible to this point. We do know, though, that there have been those hiccups and there have been those bugaboos. Last year, it was the University of Washington twice for the Oregon Ducks. It will be getting over that hump in big games and crucial situations for Oregon that the FPI model cannot get a gauge on.
Yeah.
What all of this is saying is that the metrics have lined up, though. If you look at what FPI has, second best in odds to make the playoffs and second best odds to win the national championship, according to the FPI. They have the best odds to win their conference, the best odds in all of college football to secure a first-round bye, and that is including with Georgia in this mix because of Georgia's schedule this year is not a bunch of patty cakes. They have a really tough schedule, Georgia does this year.
I guess it's once every decade.
And they have the highest win total in all of college football, does Oregon. In all of those things, you sit there and you go, all right, cool. At this point, here we are in June talking about what's going to happen. You obviously cannot take into account injuries, weather, matchups, and that's something that it's not taken into consideration because I think the matchup with Ohio State, the matchup with Michigan, and Michigan building their program this year to, in a shocking development, Jim Harbaugh leaves, and somehow Sherrone Moore's offense is supposed to be even more condensed and even more in a phone booth. Mm-hmm. They're going to run the hell out of the football. It's going to be a physical brand of football.
Iowa East?
Dude, it is. They are, yeah. I mean, I heard Joel Klatt on with Colin Cowherd earlier today. He was saying that this could be a Michigan team that lines up and tries to run the ball 55 times.
Gross. Navy's over here like, whoa, guys. Chill.
I mean,
maybe throw the ball.
It won't be a triple option, but it's going to be. You better bring your lunch pail.
No, it's going to be one option. It's going to be right or left.
Yeah. Well, they got a quarterback that can run. They've got all of the offensive linemen that you could ask for. Like, it's going to be stylistically, it's going to be far different when you're going into the Big Ten than what it was in the Pac-12. The Pac-12, it had a lot of balance throughout the conference. 12 teams, and you had quite a bit of variation offensively of what teams were trying to do. In the Big Ten, that's consolidating down a little bit more, and it is different. The one thing that you will see a lot more in the Big Ten that, and this is not a surprise or groundbreaking in any way, they're going to run the ball more. In cold weather, in bad weather, you need to be built to run the ball. And I think that that's why you saw Oregon make it such a point of emphasis to bolster their defensive line through the transfer portal and continue to have depth there, because you're going to have waves of bodies that you're throwing at Big Ten teams. And, in a weird twist, Wisconsin will probably be a little bit more spread out this year than they have in years past. Michigan, tightening it down. Wisconsin, they're going to have the ability,
just like everyone expected,
to throw the ball a little bit more. I mean, they're not going to be air raid by any means, but it's not going to be the Wisconsin team that we've become accustomed to seeing, because they've done a really good job with Fickle of recruiting more skill positions. They still got those big uglies up front, but all of this in I think where Lanning has always wanted this program to be is they've kind of been getting to that point. Now we had this conversation of a couple of months ago of, all right, which team is going to be the next one that has to win a national title? That momentum is now starting with the University of Oregon. That, like,
they're putting you front and center. Hey,
it's right here.
Yeah.
The expectations are there. And Texas is going to be really damn good again this year. Ohio State going to be really damn good this year. So that is, I think if you're a fan of Oregon, you're sitting there like, hell yeah, this is where you want to be. This is where the program should be at. The Bo Nix being there, Dylan Gabriel dude can sling it, and he is cerebral. He is get the ball out quick, and he's going to be a guy that is reminiscent of Bo Nix, just left-handed and shorter. But we all saw what Bo was year one and the major step forward he took year two.
Yes.
I mean, I think people forget that when Dylan Gabriel takes his first snap, that'll be his 51st game played in college
He's got
football.
experience.
Week 1 against Idaho will be game 51. Bo Nix's record is going to be so shortly lived of most starts in college football. He had 26 at Central Florida, and then 24 at Oklahoma. He's played a lot of friggin' football.
Yeah.
But systematically getting used to your weapons, it will take a little bit of time, and it's how fast does that development happen? How fast does that rapport with the receivers and his grasp of everything that Will Stein wants to do be? By all accounts, everything is not just up to speed, but kind of he's a step ahead of where, even they want him to be. He's done a fantastic job down there. But, those are the little things that a national champion team, as you said at the very beginning of this, it comes down to, like, only one of these teams is like bringing back their starting quarterback. It's Georgia with Carson Beck, right? Everybody else, you're looking at it, and I guess you could take Penn State with Drew Aller,
which
was lackluster, started out really well last year, and then just continued to kind of fade off as the season went on. Everybody else is bringing in new quarterback. Quinn Ewers at
with
Texas
injury,
as well. But Ewers is going to be a Heisman Trophy frontrunner.
Yes.
He should win the Heisman Trophy if he stays healthy throughout this course of the season, because he has all the weapons in the world. He's got a really damn good team around him. The expectations are through the roof. But it is a different world of college football that we're in is, all right, can the hired gun come in and get them over the top? And look, that is a question. How the puzzle pieces fit together defensively too. That there's a lot of new names and new faces that are in on that Oregon defense. The expectations are through the roof. And right now, top, according to the Football Power Index, which again, use caution with it, best odds to win their conference in all of college football, secure a first-round bye, and the highest win total. There should be very high expectations because the ceiling is ridiculously high for this Oregon team.
This is June 3rd. I don't think that expectation train is slowing down anytime soon.
No, it's probably going to
ramp up ever so slightly.
Keep on ramping up as we get closer and closer to the start of the college football season.
Well,
I'm excited, man. The Big Ten, it is like this move. I hate that the Pac-12 is gone, but the move to the Big Ten and the fact that there is a seat at the table for Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. it's going to open up a whole other conversation in college football with that consolidation of power between the Big Ten and the SEC. It's fun, man.
It's going to be fun.
Yep.
It's going to be real fun. Even more fun when you can start your own dynasty in NCAA football here in a month and a half.
Yeah, buddy.
Hey!